Welcome to Plans Are Booked, a podcast for every reader. I'm Molly Geller.
And I'm Caitlin Madison. Welcome to chapter 112. We have a very special episode today because we have a guest. I didn't make up one of those little fun intros like they do at bookstores. I should have done that. That would have been fun. That would have been, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like the Kelsey brothers have really
Yes.
amped up like how people are supposed to be introduced now. But we have author Jessica Guerrieri with us. And she is going to be fangirling with us for a little bit because why not? And then we are going to talk about one of her books that's coming out soon. So we're really excited.
Welcome, Jessica. You did what I feel like is normally reserved for like celebs who become in relationships, which is you slid into the DMs and you said, I am a Heated Rivalry super fan, and it seems like you gals are too. Please, can we talk about it?
So the number of times that I have slid into people's DMs in a non celebrity way of just like, I wonder if I could insert myself in your life somehow and that it's worked out for my benefit. My favorite thing to do is make videos of like for authors that I love. And I'll just like make a video of myself and I'll be like, hi, hello, you don't know me. I'm a big fan of yours. And somehow it always gets a response back and it's so great. And then you guys responded and I was like, oh, my dreams are coming true.
I love it. I love it. Tell us, like, how did you come to the Heated Rivalry fandom? Did you already know about the books? Did you see that it was coming to HBO? How did it come onto your radar?
You know, it came onto my radar because I was really lucky. I got to go be a guest, like introductory person for author Ann Adams, and she writes romance. And she invited me to be her like speaker with her at her book launch, and I was already in the romance game of like, oh, this is super fun. And then hers is about rowing. And I was like, oh, I love, I did rowing for a hot minute. I played volleyball and softball and like, I love the sporting stuff. And so I had already known about the books. I had already read them. And then I was like, somebody started talking to me about them. And it was actually funny because it was somebody that was in recovery as well, because I'm sober. And she was like, hey, I just want to tell you if you need like a transfer addiction that's like healthy, I'm going to recommend this show. And I was like, okay, sounds great. And I have to be honest, I like did the first like one and then two. And I was kind of like, am I watching the right show? Like, is that really? And then I got it. When everybody got it, I got it. And I was like, there's no going back.
Caitlin, I feel like you had kind of a similar arc.
I'm going to say one thing. For my birthday this past week, I got this shirt.
Listeners, it says Kingfisher, Greenwich Village, New York City.
Amazing.
My friend made it because I asked our listeners, does anybody have an Etsy or anything with Kingfisher merch? Because like that's like my dream bar. Like, please give me a gay sports bar to like hang out at. I would have an absolute ball. And Boston is such a sports town that like, I just feel like we're missing something. And
yes,
couldn't find the merch. It didn't exist. And so my friend made this for me. So I thought today was the perfect day to wear it.
That is the perfect. That's amazing. And also, yes, you guys should start that. That it would still succeed. Like even if you started building right now, it would still succeed as a place. And like,
I think so too. Maybe it needs to be like a sports book bar.
Yes,
with that's LGBTQ club, friendly.
Silent reading.
I have a lot of visions. Yeah, I think it could be really cool.
I love it.
But apart from the shirt, I too was a little reluctant about Heated Rivalry. I knew about the book series. I had not read it. Our friend Steph, who also co-hosts this with us, was like, this is going to be really good. Like gay hockey romance, they're rivals, la-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to watch it. And I watched the first episode and I was like, this is so horny. Like, this is so, and like they're 19-year-old rookies, right? So I
Right.
was like, I just don't know if I can watch a whole season of this. And
Right.
then Stephanie was like, okay, well, it spans like a decade of their lives. So, like, as you get through the show, they're like more mature and like they start get feelings and like all these things. And I was like, oh, well, I would, I love pining, right? Like, I love a love triangle. I love pining. I was a
Alas,
Dawson's Creek
unfortunately.
girly growing up,
Oh, of
obviously.
course.
So,
Obviously,
I was
Felicity,
like,
everything.
I was, I
Yes.
was like, okay, say no more. There's going to be feelings. There's going to be like maybe some unrequited stuff going on. They're going to get a little older. So then I hit play on episode 2 and I was like, okay, I can this is gaining a little traction. Like, I'm a little more interested. There's less things to kind of like poke fun at. Because in the
Sure.
first episode, there's just a lot of moments where you're like, of course this is happening.
Right.
And then episode 3, I was like, okay, all right. We're getting somewhere. There's some depth here. We're getting some new characters. And I had no idea um that episode 3 was the first book of the series. Like,
Mhm.
I did not get that memo. I really didn't know anything about the books when I started the show. So then that was like a fun little surprise that was like they were kind of reverting back to the first book, and so
Mhm.
far we had been in the second book land. And so that was kind of my trajectory with it. And Molly and Steph had both finished the whole show maybe more than once
Probably.
before I started it. And they were talking about it on the pod. And they were talking about how they were already on their second or third watches.
Yeah,
And
I know that girl
the
so
show
well.
had been out for like a month.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, you guys had like casually mentioned that you were going to start this show. I didn't know that this was
A
like
phenomenon.
rewatchable, binge worthy. I was like,
Yeah.
I need to play catch up now. So
Yes.
I was the last one. I was behind. Not
Okay.
by much, but I mean, I
Okay, so
started
you
it
got to
before the
experience
first
it.
season ended.
But you got to experience it. I would be so cocky. I would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting it the first time again." Like, what would you seriously like? Would you sell a kidney to watch it again for the first time? I would. I would, or I'd donate one, really. But like, seriously,
To watch just episode 5 again for the first time, yeah, I think so. I think episode 5 is worth an organ probably, because
probably. Yeah.
I was like standing, it was like, I would imagine it was like when Team USA beat Russia in the
Right.
Olympics for hockey.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of like euphoria I felt. I was like,
Yeah.
it's happening. We're doing it. Like,
Right. Like
and
everyone's cheering. You're
I
standing.
was just by myself in my living room. My
Yeah.
dog thought I was nuts. I
No,
was like,
definitely.
but it was just like, it was so good. It was so good. So yeah, episode 5 for sure.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know if you listened to any of our previous episodes. No worries if you didn't.
Oh yeah.
But I was inspired by Shane to get a freckle pen. I'm just throwing that out there. I didn't wear them today.
Same
Did
girl,
Yes.
same girl.
Yes.
My I have 3 daughters and one of them actually made fun of me and she's 10 and I was like, ugh. I mean, she doesn't know it was because of heated rivalry because she's 10, you know what I
Yep.
mean? But
Yep.
she was just like, "Mom, do you have like freckles on?" And I was like, "Shh, shh, just don't worry about it."
Yep.
It was like not subtle enough,
I
but
got the stamp style. I'm not
same,
wearing them today, but
same. Yeah,
I love it. I
I'm
feel
obsessed.
so young and cute when I wear them.
It's because it is young and cute. Do we know if his? I haven't Googled this because like I need to live in the fantasy. Are his freckles real?
Not
No,
real.
no.
Oh, I didn't need to know that. I
Yep.
just wanted to
No,
pretend.
he has like the most flawless
Oh yeah.
airbrushed skin. There's a whole very manic video that he posted about his skincare routine because he has a Korean auntie that tells him all the products that he should buy.
Great. So he
And
also
he also talks about the woman who applies his freckles
freckles.
for him for the show with the freckle
Do
pen.
they need like a backup person for
They
that?
should,
Because
I
I
know.
actually am available on tour
I,
if
yeah.
for the second
Okay,
show.
perfect. Yeah, no, this is,
I'll bring
we're
my
the
own
freckle
freckle pen.
team. Jess and I are the
Literally.
freckle team.
Oh
We're
my
ready. I've been
God.
practicing.
I've gotten pretty, I mean, I've gotten better. My 10-year-old doesn't make fun of me anymore. So I
Yeah,
should put that on the resume, right? When
That's
I'm
a
like,
good start.
excuse me, I would like to
that
be.
is
Um,
so funny.
I knew
I
that I would like the freckle pen because I've done the glitter freckles for concerts before.
Oh, of course, the one that Taylor
The Taylor
Swift
Swift, yeah.
recommended. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. I did
Yeah.
this for like races and stuff. I actually tried the freckle ones. No shade to them. It looked like I had a skin condition.
Yes. The first time I tried the stamp instead of the pen, I overdid it. And like my brother saw me and
Are you having an
he was
episode?
like, it's the winter, so I know you like didn't get skin cancer in like 2 days. But I was like, yeah, I need to like adjust this a little bit.
Okay, fine. Fine. But yeah, no, the other ones I love like the gem ones. I was gonna do it for St. Patrick's Day with the green.
oh yeah.
And I just didn't get my act together. But and if Taylor Swift goes on tour again, I'll just wear them for
Yeah.
like leading up to the show and all the
I
way
wore
through.
them to a Gracie Abrams concert and it was completely the right move. I'm probably going to do them for Gaga at the end of the month. They're
Oh
really fun.
yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, I do half marathons, and the new thing is to do them like when you're running because they actually stay on.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I didn't get the memo on like the like real authentic ones, and so I run with all of my mom friends, and so her daughter, who's I think 7, she got us like the really like cheap like
Mm.
like fake ones, and she like wanted us to do that, and so by the end it was like your face, it's like melting off your face, and it wasn't cute in the way that I wanted it to be at the end. So
You live and you learn.
you live and you learn. Yeah, exactly. I now know I'm so much better.
That's amazing. I will say, I think what both of you were describing about maybe the not immediate like mega fandom after the first 2 episodes is super common. I've
Yeah.
found that as people who were not romance readers, but have seen how it's come into the pop culture universe, it's unavoidable, right? Like they were carrying the Olympic torch, they're at the Golden
There's so
Globes,
much face in the
they're at the
best.
Oscars, they're at Fashion Week, like they're everywhere. So even if you didn't watch the show, you would start to be like, who are the at Saturday Night Live? You'd be like,
Yeah.
who are these people? So I tell people who haven't touched anything yet, I say, you need to get through 1 and 2 so that
Yeah.
you have the context. 3, you're going to be like, yes, I'm in on this.
Hmm.
4 is a bit of a like, the miscommunication that happens in every romantic story where you're like, we got to get over this. And then 5 and 6 will just alter your brain chemistry. It's like a completely different
Yeah.
level of storytelling, of nuance, of romance, of hope, of joy. That 6th episode is like balm to my nervous system. No matter how
Yep.
many times I watch it, I can feel myself like my shoulders lowering, my
Yep.
breathing slowing. It's like I give into the idea that this kind of love and
Mhm.
relationship and devotion and sacrifice can be real.
Right.
And we talked on a previous episode about all 3 of us are straight women. And I think we're not necessarily the original audience for this show. And we fell in love with these characters, with this love story. And I think it gives hope. That's like the word I always come back to. It gives hope that you can find someone who sees you for exactly who you are and is willing to make space for you to be however you need to be. And, people have said to me like, oh, that's the gay hockey show, or that's like the horny hockey show. I'm like, if
Right.
that's what you think it is,
You're like,
you're missing the point.
you're so far off. I wrote a whole Substack on this because I was trying to really understand, like I minored in psychology, so I like to like bring that in whenever I can. And I'm like, what is it about straight women's obsession with this? And it's the safety in which we feel with the gaze, right? Because I don't mean gaze as in like the gaze, I mean like the male gaze, just being
Yes.
PC on that. Um, it's the safety that you feel because it's so non-threatening in the sense of their love for each other is so consensual and pure, and we've been saturated with this idea, especially in the romance field, where it's like this will they, won't they, bad boy, a little bit dangerous. And it feels almost like unsafe, right? In a way. And so to like witness something that's so safe is so, like you said, your nervous system, it's just not threatened. And so there's something about it like that that is where it's like it's hitting something with women, you know what I mean? Because it's also not the acts in which they're doing the sexual acts, it's not something that straight women can recreate, and so the fantasy is truly a fantasy that isn't like made awful by like straight people sex. um and I mean that in like a nice way, but you know what I mean, like, and that's
Yes,
what makes it
100%. I was
so
saying
alluring.
when we talked about this in a previous episode that a lot of times when you're watching a heterosexual relationship on screen, especially if it's between people who have just met, if you're a straight woman and you're watching that, there's always a part of the back of your mind going, oh God, please don't hurt her. Like whether they're
1000%.
walking out of a bar together, getting into a car together, driving to an unknown place together, you are constantly asking yourself, is this going to be okay?
Right.
And with this show, they were in so many scenarios together that if it had been a straight man and a straight woman, my reaction to the scenes would have been completely different. Like
Yes.
Ilya shoving Shane into the hotel wall. Okay. Episode
Yeah.
1. Totally different if you change the dynamic of that relationship.
Yep.
Being asked to come into a backdoor alley of someone's apartment. Like there were many moments where I thought this only works in this dynamic and
Right.
allows you to watch it without fear in
Right.
a way that made it possible to just focus on the progression of their relationship.
Absolutely. I went to go see a romance author speak, and I'm not going to tell you who it is because she's a New York Times bestseller and she was amazing. But I will say I tell this story, and it's no shame on her, and it's no shame on the romance genre, but I bring it up as a sober woman because of the way that alcohol is portrayed in books and especially in romance. Somebody raised their hand and said, like, what's your favorite trope, like your romance trope to write? And she said, my favorite romance trope to write is the drunken night. And I was like, and my friend like looked at me and she's like, oh, where's she going with this? Like, huh. She's like, I love when either the man or the woman gets too drunk on the first date and somebody takes care of the other person. And it's this like chivalry. And I love writing that. And I was like, my whole body was like, oh my God, I have so many problems with this as a sober person, as a person that survived sexual assault. I can't even begin to describe how much I hate this. Um, because you're describing a version of like date rape or like not being date raped. And like there's instances of alcohol use, right, in heated rivalry where it still continues to be fully consensual. And then also, it's not a ploy, it's not a gimmick, and that to me is like, can we write more about that? Where like alcohol is not the main character unless it's what I do, which is showing it the truth behind it of like its ugly side, its dark side of what it brings out of people, and not this, hunting wives where everybody's getting drunk and making out with each other in the cabins because they're doing shots, like
And
let's have a little bit more.
I think that that's so interesting because not only is alcohol like not really a part of any of this show, it's
Right.
like really, I mean, Shane drinks ginger ale. Like it's
Yes.
really on the back burner in this
Right.
show
Yeah,
completely.
because he's an athlete and like he's like, no, I eat a diet and I have this, and that is real life. Like
Right. Because it's
his
his
whole job
job. Yeah.
is his body and his health, and he's like, sorry, I can't just drink for the night, right? Like I can't just give, and his parents are like, come on, you can do it or whatever. And that's real life. Like
Right.
athletes aren't just like, okay, fine, I'll drink. It's like, no, you have discipline.
I really
Yeah.
liked that they showed that side of it, that like it really can be a consuming aspect of your life, because I think it also contributed to, if Shane takes his diet and drinking that seriously, it really helps you understand why he would stay in the closet, I think, because he's like taking it so like he's like, I'm doing everything by the book, and like
Yes.
I'm one of the first Asian NHL players, and like I need to really like adhere to this playbook that has been prescribed to me, or things are really going to go off the rails quickly. I wanted to go back to something that you both said earlier about like the gender dynamics and the aspects that are appealing to straight women. For me, it was like the vulnerability, like in my dating life and even in like my media consuming life.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't get a lot of opportunities to see somebody like Ilya Rozanov be vulnerable. He comes off as this tough guy. I mean, it took me 2 or 3 episodes before I even Googled that Connor Story was not Russian. I had no idea.
1000%. I was just like, yeah, this Russian guy, okay, he looks Russian. I mean, he
Yep.
sounds Russian, all this stuff. And I was just kind of like, oh, this accent's going to be kind of tough, like I don't really know. Yeah,
Yep. So
100%.
I I just really think, and this is true of the books as well, I think that they just do a really good job depicting when men emote what it can look like.
Yeah,
And it's not that they aren't thinking the same way as women, which I mean, they are thinking differently than women, but I
yeah,
think a lot of the things that they're insecure about, I think a lot of the things that they wonder about in terms of intimacy, I think we have a lot more similar wonderings than we might assume. And
yes,
I think that this show does a really good job doing that. And I think the other part of it is I feel like a lot of shows that have gay men in a relationship do make them very sexualized. Like
right.
I'm thinking back to like when 6 Feet Under was on TV, and
Hmm.
David has this closeted relationship with Keith, and he, it's like very behind closed doors and he doesn't want people to know. And Keith is like, I'm starting to feel like an object here. Like I'm
Yeah,
really starting to feel like you show up at night, we sleep together, and then you're gone in the morning and we're not doing any of the relationship stuff. And I thought it was so cool that in Heated Rivalry, they also are not out in the open dating, but they are having these really meaningful phone conversations. Or when they're together, they actually start talking. And like one of the big pivotal moments is when Ilya offers to like make him a sandwich. Like they're starting to do things that show care for one another that's beyond the sex. And I feel like we don't really get a ton of that.
no,
The only one that we probably do is like Modern Family because that was a sitcom and they had just adopted a little girl and so it was showing like the family aspects of it.
right.
But I just hope we get more of this in the media. Like I hope that everyone's paying attention and that obviously we all love Hudson and Connor, but like I don't want it to be like, oh, it's because everyone loves Hudson and Connor. It's like, no, we actually
No,
like the storytelling. Like we want more, we love them, give us more of them, but we also want more of this type of storytelling. And I'm just so thrilled that people are so into it.
yeah.
It makes me happy.
Literally, there is that the scene of him talking in Russian in the tunnel is a master class in like intimacy. So I fall asleep to audiobooks, right? Like I have to, I have ADHD and like my brain will not shut down. And so I that's how I consume as many books as I can. I just started like listening to Heated Rivalry like
Mm.
as the, to fall asleep, but genuinely just his like soliloquy of in Russian of him describing, what he's saying and how he says I love you for the first time and everything. There is no better cinematography than that, writing than that, declaration of love that I've ever seen. It pulls at all the things. And so like to your point, Caitlin, we need more of that, like of that shown depth. Because that is what's in the books. That is what's in true romance. And that's why it's like the number one selling genre, right? Of people. Like it's not just all this lusty, sexualized stuff. There is this connection that they're able to show, and like, yeah, more of that, please.
Yeah, I also wondered if in your TV viewing part of it, if you noticed the first go around the visual parallels, because
Oh,
admittedly,
the light and the
I
dark.
didn't
Oh,
until
no.
people
That's
started
very
making videos.
distracting.
And I was like, wait a second. Like, there were so many Easter eggs that
Yeah.
were sprinkled throughout that I absolutely missed the first time through. And honestly, sometimes even the second time through.
Yeah.
And I would start watching, looking for the things that other creators were sharing. And then people were making visuals where the top image and the bottom image were the mirror, right? Like the first time their feet touch under the table at the press conference, then it happens again at his parents' house up at the lake, or when they're in the first scene, as I described earlier, Ilya pushes Shane up against the wall, which also happens in episode 6 in the cottage. Exact same choreography
With the light open, and he
with the
keeps
light instead of the
face out
dark.
in the
Did
dark.
you notice that stuff initially?
So, okay, so as a writer, and I am obsessed with all the details of everything, of Easter eggs. You know, I love Taylor Swift's. I love anything that is an interpretation of something. I don't think anything is ever should be an accident if you're an artist, right? And so I was watching it with like eyes wide open past the second episode, right? Of like, oh, this is truly art form. Because you're so distracted, right? In the beginning too. Like you don't, they're just so beautiful, and like the shower is just so hot. And
I
you're
was
like,
going to
okay.
say the shower.
And you're like, I just can't. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. And it's like reading a really good book too, where you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many more layers to this. So like, I want to say, yeah, I totally saw all the stuff in the beginning. I didn't, but I was like super conscious of it because you could just tell that the art was there. And also, I'm sorry, but like gay men just do it better, right? Like their eye for detail, the director, like he just don't ever do everything you write. Like each word should be intentional. And you could tell that they felt that way when they're filming it of, you know, the light in the cottage, the, you know, his feet touching at the, on the couch and, you know, just
Oh,
like
the toes touching on the couch.
toes touching
Just
on the couch, and like he's wearing his shirt when they're
right.
barbecuing, and just like the comfort of that and what that means in a relationship, and like he's actually like letting his hair down for the first time. He feels safe in that place, which, you know, is so important for him because Ilya's never felt safe other places.
Totally. I wonder also if you had a favorite side character, someone outside of Shane and Ilya.
Okay, so I really loved Rose. I think Rose does this amazing job. The conversation of him coming out to her for the first time, I thought was so profoundly beautiful. The way that she didn't rush him, you know, that the fact that they had been like intimate before, and she's like, "You don't owe me anything," but then he's like, no, I do, meaning like I feel safe with you to do this, to say this thing. And then her recognizing, like, have you ever said that to anyone before? Like, and treating it as the importance and the sanctity, like understanding the sanctity of that. Also, she's just like so stupidly beautiful and all, you know, all the things, but their like chemistry. I was also like, how do I like replace her as an actress and like get to be with him too on the side? Like, how do I make friends with all of them together? And, you know, just, I just want to hang out with them.
I remember the first time I watched that scene when they're in the restaurant and she's like, "We got to talk about it."
Yeah.
I remember I was like clenching my fists and I was like, "Oh my God, please don't get mad at him. Please don't get mad at
Oh,
him. He
like with the
can't."
parents and the how the parents can react when the dad left. And you're like,
Well,
please don't
but with
go off.
Rose, I just was like, I was like, she could get really mad. Like if it gets
Yeah.
out that she was dating another gay guy, like that could really be annoying for her in
Right.
terms of media stuff. And I was like, please don't get mad at him. Like, just please be understanding. And
Yeah.
not
Do
only was
this.
she understanding,
Right.
she was like the ultimate ally, a great friend, all of these things. And that actress is in Yellow Jackets and
Yeah.
she's like constantly like in mud and disgusting and like kind of going crazy. So it was really fun seeing her
Yeah.
in like as like a very posh character. Like she could have been like pretty vapid. You know what I mean? Like she's like
Oh,
this
totally.
actress and she's like in all these movies that she says aren't very good but make a lot of money and all of these things, and they like totally spun that on its head and made her like really cool. And
Yeah.
so
Um,
I just, yeah, I think she's really great as well. And a lot of people like a lot of the comments that I saw were like, "Oh, it's so nice for there to be like the gays bestie, but it's like a new bestie." Because a lot of times like in books and TV shows, it's a well-established friend that has known you since before you came out, like has known you your whole life. You've
Like
always been
Tiff's friend.
friend.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so um it's kind of refreshing to be like, oh, this is a new friend who can be trusted, who's getting information that nobody else has.
Hmm.
And because he doesn't really have a ton of friends outside of hockey, so he's like, I don't really have anybody I can tell. And I
His
loved that.
and the other thing I love so much, so I'm a former special education teacher, so I taught special ed, and so I have just like a passion for children on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum. I did this interview recently and they're like, what would be your dream job besides being an author? And I'm like, so Love on the Spectrum, the relationship counselor person. I said, that is my
Yes.
dream job. Sign me up for that. How in the world do I get to do that? Because I would just, yeah, anyway, of like, okay,
I have
it's
watched
my next life.
every episode of that show. I find it
Literally
so
so
moving.
amazing. It's like if you need just like heart warmth, you can watch Heated Rivalry, and you can also watch Love on the Spectrum, and you just like all of your faith in humanity is restored. But I love the tenderness in which he shows what it's like to be an adult on the autism spectrum and then finding love, and the nature in which, like you were saying, with like his regimented schedules, and like this is like very soothing for someone on the spectrum to be like, okay, well, I need it to be this routine, but then also having to go outside of his comfort zone because of his feelings, and just the way that he portrayed it was so spot on. And also like representation matters so much. I love that he's representing adults on the spectrum, athletes on the spectrum, minorities on the spectrum, and just like they did it so beautifully.
Okay, another pressing question. Are you pro or con the Ilya Hawaiian shirt at the All-Star game?
I am so Hawaiians, absolutely not.
Oh, I love
Absolutely
it. I love
not.
it.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like he could like it doesn't matter. Like literally it's one of those, okay, you know what's really funny is there's the athletes that are so sexy in real life. Who am I thinking of? Like Posh's husband, what's his
Oh
name?
yeah, David Beckham.
Beckham.
Yeah, David Beckham, or like they have to find a way to make themselves less attractive. And like David Beckham, I think, is like the tattoos and stuff of just like, I'm just too sexy. Like, don't look, I'm like the sun, like, don't look directly at me. And I think the shirt is that. Like, the Hawaiian shirt is just like, let's see how hot I can be in something ridiculous. And it's like, yeah, you still win. Like, you could wear like a palm tree on your head and like, it doesn't matter. You just
Well, he also has that crazy tiger shirt in the club.
in the club. Okay,
I
the
think that shirt
question
is like
is,
John Galliano. I think it's actually very expensive.
oh, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, like, also the way that they dress themselves for everything, too. And the fact that they were like matching with his girlfriend at, I was like, of course you guys are. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're wearing because they own everything, right? And that's the confidence thing that is so sexy in what I love about Shane. It doesn't matter because he's confident in himself. I think that's so amazing. Like,
I love it.
yes.
I know. I love it. Music is a huge part of the show, and there's so many songs that have gone just bonkers viral as a
Yeah.
result of being included on the soundtrack. I wondered if there were any songs or any moments where music was playing where you were like, "Oh, man, like that moved me or that hit me in a certain way."
So literally the song that I just put on the reel that I just made on the third episode when they're on the rink and they're kissing, and the way it just, again, it's like pure art. Like you nailed it. I've always loved, it's either Feast or Feist.
Yeah.
I've
Nice.
always
Yeah.
loved them. Yes. And really it's just you can't imagine any of the scenes without the music in the background, and it just wouldn't work with literally anything else. Like there wasn't a song or there wasn't a moment in which I wasn't like, you guys just nailed this. And then every song that you hear too, what's fun is like when you're trying to get like your hit of like, I'll try and get like a hit if I'm in public of
Mm.
like driving in my car by listening to the song. And then I'm like, oh, but I also want to be watching the show. Like it's not enough. It's like, again, spoken by a true addict, but the music will get me where I need to go, but not, it's not enough. I need all
Mhm.
of the combination of everything, right?
Oh yeah, I feel that way too when I listen to it. I listen to it in the car a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like at the end of this year, whatever my Spotify Wrapped is going to be
Yeah, they're
like
like,
all
and
Heated
he
Rivalry.
left
Um, but
rivalry.
I feel the same as you, where like I start listening and I get so excited, and then I'm like, okay, now I just want to drive home and actually
Okay, now I
watch
have to go,
this.
and then I have to go watch it from the beginning, or I have to do my ingredient is I watch from the club to the end. And that's if I only have enough time to do it. So I do the club scene and I go all the way through to the
That's a
cottage.
good tip. That's a good
And
tip. I like that.
that's my like line of heated rivalry. Um I just like trigger warning and I just that's exactly the right amount because the scene when the music starts where they're
Yeah.
doing the song because all the things she said by the way that song was like my I'm bisexual and so that was like my bisexual anthem when it came out and I like wasn't out I was younger and like it wasn't cool or it wasn't it was very nerve-wracking and so that song came out at that time and so for that song to come forth and then they changed it into what it became the nuance of it I was just like oh my god I love this so much but yeah I am bisexual but I married a man and it's so funny to me too because I tell him about this show and I've had to like explain it. Like I haven't asked him to watch it with me because I want to still love him in the way that I do. And if he doesn't love it in the way that I need him to, like I worry about our future.
Yeah, it'll be problematic.
High
Um
stakes, very
and
high
so I
stakes.
don't and he would like play along, he would do all the stuff, like he would watch it and he would do all the stuff and I'm sure he would love it too, but like it wouldn't be enough for what
Mm,
I need it to be.
mm-hmm.
And he's just like, okay, like all right, interesting. And I was like, yeah. And I tried to explain to him about the safety of like watching two gay men be together sexually. And he was just like, okay.
Right.
Like he was
They don't
really
get it.
trying to
Yeah,
get
he
it.
wouldn't get it.
I was
Yeah.
like, I don't think you're gonna get it, but that's okay. It feels safe for me. And he's like, great. I'm so glad.
I feel like you have mentioned so many things that are in your new book.
Yeah.
Like
Look at
just
that
kind
segue.
of just like I feel like you kind of did it very organically because your new book that's coming out in May, Both Can Be True. I loved it. I
Thank you.
feel like first of all, there's a bisexual character.
Yes.
Second of all, there's a woman on a sobriety journey.
Yep.
Third of all, there is a character that has autism. I feel like but it just naturally these things came up. And I want to talk about this book because I feel like I've been waiting for this book. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. There are a lot of books out there right now that have complex female characters. So, like,
Yep.
I'm thinking like Blue Sisters.
Yep.
I'm thinking about Margot Has Money Trouble.
Yep.
I'm thinking about what was the other one that we just covered, Molly? That was a newer one. That takes place at the beach house on Thanksgiving.
The Irish Goodbye.
The
I was
Irish
gonna say
Goodbye.
yep. Mm-hmm.
Those were hard reads for me because I did not see a lot of redeeming qualities in these complicated women. Like they were not women that I would want to be friends with.
Yep.
And Frankie and Mare in Both Can Be True, I like both of them. I would hang out with both of them. And they're still flawed and they still have a lot going on and they're still figuring things out. But they also are very self aware that they're figuring things out and they're trying to give themselves some grace. And it's much more palatable to me. Like it's much more enjoyable to read. And I found myself really rooting for them on the different journeys that they're on in your book. And I just feel like I've been waiting for a book to come out about flawed women that I like and want to be friends with. And it just, until I read this book, I feel like I hadn't really found one in a really long time.
Thank you.
So I
That's
really
great.
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Do you want to give us a little? I feel like it would be great if you could just give us like a brief overview of the book so that I don't give anything away that you don't
Yeah.
want given away.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's really, I actually love that you said that because if you read my first book, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, it's funny. She is a deeply flawed, unreliable narrator that is hard to root for because she is in the throes of active alcoholism. And I wanted to write her from the place that I was in, which was the most terrifying place of like, I want to stop drinking and I cannot. And I want to intertwine that in with all the complexities of motherhood. And so that was what Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea was about. And so ultimately, because my story is one of hope, I always write hopeful stories, even though they're like very dark and heavy and complex women, like you said. So both can be true. It came from a place of I really wanted to write ultimately about the interest between complicated sister dynamics. I have an older sister who's 2 years older. We have a wonderful relationship. Actually, she's going to be my conversation partner for my book launch that's happening on May 19th in Davis. And we like nobody knows you like your sister, right? If you have one, and
I do.
yeah, and so I wanted to show sort of how you can kind of weave in and out of these close pockets and then like always find your way back to one another. So as we're presented with the sisters Mare and Frankie, they're in a particularly like a divided part, and it's based on their childhood traumas. They both had different experiences of their childhood, which I think is also so interesting about sisters, right? You can have the same parents and grow up in the same house and you're like, I'm sorry, what did you think happened on that Thanksgiving of 2021? Like, and it's like, no, that wasn't it. That's not how I experienced it. And it's the both can be true, right? Both interpretations can be true. And so really it's just what happens when you explore all the ways that women disappear in plain sight. And how this actually unfolded was as one of my other obsessions besides heated rivalry, am obsessed with all things true crime. I will be cleaning my house and I will be listening to savage murders. And my husband's like, literally, what are you listening to? And it actually really like has this soothing effect for me, which is bizarre, but I write about it in the book, is that women have been gaslit our whole life to say that like horrible things don't happen to us and that we're overreacting and that we're just being emotional. And yet we hear these horrible stories of partners of people closest to women who do awful things to them, and we need that validation to say like we're not crazy, like we're not the crazy ones, right? In fact, we're the survivors of these things. And so I weave in the element of this missing woman, and it brings the sisters back together in a way. And then I wanted to show, okay, well, what are the other ways that women can disappear in plain sight? And so it's like you lose your identity in motherhood, you lose your identity in your marriage. One of the sisters is married. She has a child that's newly identified on the autism spectrum. She's starting to notice very similar traits within her husband. If I had $1 for every time I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends that was like, I think like my husband has autism traits, not in any sort of negative connotation, just in a we're starting to notice traits within our children, and then you notice traits within your partner or yourself, and you're like, oh, your eyes sort of open to this new idea. And so that became very interesting to me, and I wanted to explore that dynamic. So I'm so excited for this book to be in the world in 2 months, but it's like a combination of all of the things that I'm interested in, and I can't wait for the world to read it.
What you said about true crime, I because my brother gives me a hard time about how much true crime I listen to,
Yeah.
and also like some of the books that I read and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I always tell him, I'm like, I needed a little flavor of justice. Like that's what I tell him. I'm like, I just needed
There
a
you go.
little justice spice thrown in
Yep.
because the world is crazy. Everything feels very anti women right now.
Yep.
And so every once in a while, I'm like, I just need to listen or watch or read something where the person that should have been held accountable actually was. And it'll make me feel a little bit better for that amount of time. And
Yeah.
it's worth it.
And you know what's interesting too is like I agree with that, but then I need to be validated in my own experience of the fact that like my assaults that I was a survivor of never actually got solved for multiple different reasons. You know, I remember like I got violently sexually assaulted in college my first week in Santa Barbara, and I went to the counseling office and I did all the things. But when I went to the counseling office, I said to them, like, I don't think I can stay here. Like, I don't feel
Mhm.
safe. And the counselor said, and this is a direct quote because I'll never forget it. She said, well, we've transferred rapists to other UCs before, so we can probably transfer victims. And I was like,
How charming.
I'm sorry, transfer them to prison or transfer? No, just to other UCs. Okay. So, like, I needed to validate that internal screaming that you guys are all doing in your head right now that I had to do of being like, oh, there is no justice. Oh, there is no. And I needed to see it in other people to feel less alone, right? Not because it made me feel better that like none of us were getting justice or anything like that. If anything, it's more enraging and infuriating, but it's my same experience with alcoholism in recovery, where like I sit in a room with other people and we talk about the things that we've been through. I went to a women's survivor group in college after this, and that was my first experience of being with a group of other survivors, and it was so collectively healing that I was like, oh, this makes me feel safe and less alone. And so then I actually just took that with me for the rest of my life. I took it into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I took it into the rooms of, women's support groups. And I was like, you know what, this is where we can feel validated in our experience. And then that's what I take into books and what I write in books is I was like, I just want women to feel seen and heard and understood, and even if the experience that they're experiencing is wrong in a legal, ethical, moral sense, I will never be the one to gaslight you on that. I will never be the one to say it's invalid, you're lying, whatever, everything that's out there all the time for women. And so that to me is like a version of empowerment, even if there isn't any justice.
I think that that makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's really powerful that you talk about it so openly and that you are willing to put yourself out there like that, because I'm sure that was not your first inclination to feel that
Right.
way. So that's really powerful. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about from the book, and you talked about it a little bit already, is one of the main characters, one of the sisters, is on a sobriety journey. And I feel like a lot of what I in the past have consumed in media, books, movies, etc., about addiction, the actual person who is the addict is very lonely
Mm,
usually. Like it's depicted as a very lonely, like you've burned all of your bridges, it's, you're out on your own, you don't talk to your family anymore. And Frankie is like the opposite of that. Like
yeah.
she has children, she has a husband, she has a sister, she has a best friend. She has like a very good support system.
Hmm.
And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about why you wanted to depict someone like that. And also if you felt that that was like kind of missing maybe, and that you wanted that to be in literature a little more.
Yeah, such a good question. So, um, again, all of my books, my agent and I use the term auto fiction, which is like, they're all based on my lived experience, but obviously there are elements that aren't accurate. I always tell the story because it's so funny. Like there's like, like an alleged affair, like the beginnings of that. And my husband's grandma, who's like one of my biggest fans, she's like 90 years old, and she always like jokes like, wow, you sure talk about like having affairs a lot in your book and stuff. Like who's the other guy? Like don't be go cheating on my grandson. And I'm just like, oh, grandma. I'm like, that's the fiction. I'm like, that's the fiction part,
That's the
obviously.
fiction. Yeah, obviously,
Um,
definitely.
but I do think that there is something so alluring in an addiction sense of being wanted and being
Mm.
seen in it as a woman in a sexualized sense when you're a mother and like you've been with somebody for X amount of years, that there is something super addicting in that. And I think that's really interesting to write about. So two of my characters, one in my first book and in my second book, have that same sort of like need. It's like that dopamine hit. But to answer your question, I really wanted to talk about, and this was based again on my lived experience. So I was sober for about 6 years from alcohol, and then the pandemic hit, and I had 3 kids under the age of 6, and I was home full time with them. I was teaching them from home, and I was like, well, I know I can't drink alcohol, but I live in California, so like, why don't I try like THC or like gummies or something that's like something else? And in my like addict brain and like in all my recovery, I knew like this was a bad idea. Like red flags, when you work a program, it's called like substances other than alcohol, you're going to get in trouble. Basically, like it's just not good for you. But there's something called like California sober, and I was like, and if I was going to try something, this would be the time, because like the world is like literally ending. I might as well be high off my ass, right? And so I wanted to show how you can relapse in
Mm.
recovery, right? And so for me, I identify as both an alcoholic and an addict, and I have a separate sobriety date and a separate clean date. And I wanted to show in Frankie's journey that, like, past traumas and things that can be triggered. In Frankie's instance, similar in mine, it was a sexual assault. And something can happen that will sort of like trip something in your brain. And without that healing, if you have the addictive component, the easy button, or the button that's going to be the one thing that's going to get you to not experience the hard feelings, is substances. And you can do it in a way that is tricky, right? It's very sneaky. That's the allure of addiction, is it's so seductive. It works until it doesn't work. And so for me, like, I don't fit the mold of like a drunken, living under a bridge, didn't have my life together person. In fact, I had everything else. I had a house, I had a husband, I became a mother, I did all these things. But I wanted to show that you can still have all those things and be suffering in the background. And it's like less depicted in these situations, in these stories. And I wanted to show that in fiction, because what better place than book club fiction for someone to identify themselves in a safe location and be like, like, well, I drink a bottle of wine a night, or like I do gummies and then I don't remember putting my kids to sleep. And like, is that, maybe that's not the best. I don't know. It's probably fine. But like, oh, and then you keep reading and it's like you get a glimpse into the future in a way that feels safer than if you're reading a memoir or you're reading a self-help book. And then you're in a book club conversation and you're amongst safe women to talk about it. And I'm like, why don't we do that? Like, what if that was the solution? And so that's why I wrote about it.
I think that is, I don't know how we can like make a poster that has like the tagline like this should be in a book club, but as somebody who has friends that I've grown up with that are now on sober journeys, like I feel like if a book like this had popped up, it would have made them pause, and they probably would have read it, and they probably would have sought it out when they saw the description and not even realized
Right.
that they were like making that connection and that they were like kind of doing a little of their own research and
Right.
doing like a little self temp check of like, this could be me. I don't know. And when this book comes out, I'm going to encourage them to buy it because I think they're still on those journeys. And I think that they're really going to appreciate a lot of the things that are going on in there, particularly about the motherhood,
Yeah.
because I really feel like I have, I was trying to think of other books where a mother character has a drinking issue but is like still running a business and still is
Mhm.
like functional in some capacity, or is like fooling people a little bit and like pulling it off maybe.
Right.
And I couldn't think of one.
Yeah.
Like I thought of Malibu Rising, but that mom's not fooling anyone and she's not doing right by her kids and she's solo parenting.
Right.
Um and
Blue
I could
Sisters, that sister is not, she
right.
goes until she can't. She's not fun. She's not fooling anyone, not functioning. And that's exactly where I wanted to dial in. And it's true of my debut, specifically Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, of this. I wanted to show a very privileged woman who has all of the ingredients for a perfect life, because what you hear is like there should be a reason behind your alcoholism, right? And for a long time I was like, okay, well, my sexual assault, that was my reason behind my alcoholism. I no longer believe that. I think genetically, we're Irish. My mom was born in Ireland. My family, it's like I was like, I got the genetic lottery to be an addict and an alcoholic. It was going to happen regardless of trauma or triggers in my experience. But I wanted to show women that like still have it all and yet they're still suffering, because that's the piece that was the most baffling for me, because I was like, stop it, just knock it
Mhm.
off, like just don't take it too far. Like my husband would always ask me like, can you just like stop after a drink or two? And the thing is that I physically cannot. Once I start, I can't stop. And that's such a normal experience to become addicted to an addictive substance that we don't talk about when it comes to motherhood and women. And I was like, okay, well, I want to talk about it. Like I want to show it in real time, because how many shows and movies have we showed of this glamorization of like also like 30, 40 something women like going out and partying, and then like waking up the next day and like parenting full on, and I'm like, give me a break. Like,
I can barely walk my dog if I've had like 3 drinks. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it's unbelievable.
And I'm
It's
like, and plus,
unbelievable.
like as you get older with like perimenopause, and like it has a bigger effect on like your brain health. I just don't understand like why we're pretending that it like feels good after a certain point, and like why we're promoting that. And I wanted to just show like the realities. Like let's just show it for real.
Yeah. I think there's a super common phrase in just book analysis where we talk about write what you know.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is giving people the opportunity to see what it's really like inside of the home,
Yeah.
inside of your car, waiting outside of a meeting you're nervous to go into.
Mhm.
This isn't someone with no life experience trying to imagine what it's like to be on a recovery journey.
Right.
And to your comment about auto fiction, I would be, as a reader, much more inclined to read even a fictional account of this kind of life journey from someone who actually has the lived experience of moving through that,
Yeah.
to feel like this isn't guessing what it
Yeah.
might be like. And that is so powerful for your readers to know that you built characters based off what you know is
Yeah.
true. I think those stories always resonate much more deeply than the ones where someone attempts to research a certain type of life experience and infuse that into a book. It just lands differently
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
it comes from the real, deep, painful, lived experience of moving through this, and also the triumphs, right? It's not all, like Caitlin was saying, some of the stereotypical depictions of people moving through addiction are very downtrodden and
Right.
depressing. And that is not always the truth of what
Right.
it's like to be a person who is struggling with addiction or trying to commit to a sober journey or committing to recovery. I have a very dear friend who's been in recovery for over 20 years. And we talk about it all the time. And
Yeah.
she says constantly, every day, I have to choose this choice again. It
Yep.
doesn't matter how long it's been. You know, everyone has the app on their phone that counts the hours, the minutes, the days. It doesn't matter how many times you hit those big milestones. It's every day committing to this for yourself or for your partner, for your children, for whatever is important to you. And
Right.
I think the complexity of managing your own recovery when you are also responsible for other human beings is so freaking hard. And
Yeah.
people don't talk about that enough. What it's
Right.
like, the pressure of being a new mom or a mom to multiple children or a child with disabilities, where
Hmm.
you are attempting to move through the world taking care of yourself and also taking care of other people. Those ideas of like, well, if someone's affluent or if they have a nanny or if whatever, it doesn't matter. If you are coming from a place of needing to focus on something for yourself, to
Right.
heal whatever that element is that makes you want to have that response to something that's upsetting or disturbing or joyful, even,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think about that all the time. When I have a big win, I'm always like, oh, can't wait to have a cocktail tonight, right? Like, what is it about my brain that makes me have that reaction? I think all of us have go to things when things are good or bad. And
Hmm.
hopefully, people are going to read this story. And if there is a moment for them to say, hey, I'm seeing like something in this character that maybe feels kind of like what I'm doing, that it might encourage them to just say, I wonder if I could try to do this differently.
And that's actually, and the reason I wrote Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea was because the first time I recognized addiction in myself was through a fictionalized book. And it was like reading that, and like for the life of me, I've tried to find it, and it was in my drinking days of like, passing out while I was reading. So like I've never been able to find it, but it was definitely book club fiction, and it was definitely a woman of means, just like a regular woman who like didn't want to be drinking the way she was. And like that was the first time a light bulb went off in my brain. And I was like, okay, I don't want to touch this right now. This doesn't feel like I'm ready to go anywhere near it, but I'm going to put it on the shelf for a minute, and I'm just going to step back. And I can't tell you the number of times that like somebody will say, like, what's so great about your books is it's not in your face, like, this is a recovery book, but you can like gift it to people, and you can people that are struggling, and they can interpret it how they want to. It's either like, oh, this is a great book because like it's a great book, or they can take what they need from it and see themselves in a way that's like not threatening, because it's not an intervention, right? Like nobody's handing you my book and being like, oh my goodness, like I'm, oh, this is what it is. It's just, it's such a good avenue to like explore that. And like honestly, that's been like such a thrill to like hear that people have been able to do that, to open the door to these like harder conversations. And it's like such an honor, truly.
I just wanted to add one last thing. I was going to ask you a question about the inspiration behind the book, but obviously you got that covered already.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to mention this idea of women disappearing in different ways,
Yeah.
because I find it fascinating, and I think in a lot of ways we always talk about men having midlife crises where they have an affair, they
Red sports
buy a
car.
Ferrari, like yeah, exactly, like the stereotypes. And I feel like we don't really talk about women having those moments.
Right.
And I think that you do a really good job of showing different ways that this can manifest for women, whether it's going into the woods, whether it's relapsing, whether it's deciding whether or not you want to have more children, or if you're happy in your marriage, or if you're, with the right person, if you're right with the right gendered person. Like all of these things come up in the book in ways that are subtle,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not so subtle, but like in ways that are like there are fleeting moments, right? Like Mare's driving in the car and she starts thinking about this girl that she once had a crush on. You know what I mean? Like there's just these like teeny tiny things where it's like a blip on the radar, and it's like now that thought's gone, and I'm grounding myself again. But then, like, the next chapter, it's like, ooh, that pops up again. Why is that popping up again? And I think that it's really an unexplored avenue. I feel like there's a lot of books coming out now where it's like, oh, the woman's going through menopause or periomenopause, and we're attributing a lot of her emotional responses to these things that are happening, and I'm glad that those books are coming out, and I think we need them.
Yep.
But this idea that, like, yeah, women also have midlife crises.
Right.
It just manifests in a way that we are not used to seeing, and
Right.
we need to see it, and we need to normalize it and have people be like, okay, so the reason that I'm feeling this way is probably because things are a little stale, or like I'm at the halfway point and I feel like maybe I don't have enough to show for it, or whatever it might be. And I feel like this idea of women disappearing in different ways is a really cool way to approach that. And I'm really looking forward to, like, I already feel it that this book's going to be a big deal. Like, I feel like I'm going to be talking about this book with a lot of people because I think there are a lot of women that are going to see themselves in it and they're going to be like, holy shit, like, she gets it. What else has she written? What's going, like, who is this person? Where do I find her? Because I, like I said, and I'm not trying to bash these other books with these flawed women, but like, I didn't see myself as
Yeah.
much in those books. And I think that because it didn't resonate with me, like, in terms of like, I don't see myself, I probably wouldn't be friends with these women, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. I feel like it made me a little more dismissive of the books.
Yeah.
But these are people that, like, I might see in the Dunkin' Donuts line. You know what I mean? Like, these are people that, like, might own the local bookstore, right? And like, you just don't know what's going on with them. And it was really delicious digging into what's going on with them and seeing that they're like going to get through it and they're going to be okay. And it's going to be messy, but ultimately, like, it's going to be just fine.
And the thing that, like, well, thank you for that. I'm so excited. And also, I want to share, I don't know if you guys are audiobook people, but like my audio team who is reading my book for Both Can Be True is Helen Laser, Rebecca Lohman, and Mia Hutchinson Shaw, who was my reader from Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea.
Awesome.
And it's just like the cast of it, the way that this book is presented, because it's the both sisters, and then there's a third character that, like, I won't say because it's kind of a spoiler. It will be so dynamic in listening to it in audio form that I'm like so excited for that experience to happen. Like, I can't wait to, I like went into the studio, I got to read my author's note, which is at the end of the book, and I highly recommend everybody read my author's notes because I explain why I choose the autofiction pieces. But I very much wanted to, like you said, have this honest dialogue with what it's actually like inside women's heads. And like, the women that you see, like you said, are women that you know, women that you're friends with, and every conversation that they're having is a version of a conversation that every woman I know is having at any given moment.
Yep.
And it's like, women are constantly like on the brink, right? Like, everybody is on the verge of a midlife crisis, right? Between certain ages, and when your kids are certain ages. And that's not like an accident. Like, that's something to be explored. And it's, why is that happening? I can answer you right now. It's because we don't have the foundation built underneath us of support. And the theme throughout this book is connection and trying to find people, communities, groups of women, sisterhood that help lift you up, that help support you, because you're not supposed to do this by yourself. You guys have a podcast as three best friends who talk about books, because this is the thing that you guys, I'm sure, have found that keeps you grounded. It keeps you going. It fills your cup. And so that's why I wrote this book too, is to show that women need this. And when it's missing from your life, like, other things will start to crumble until you can find that community back.
I feel like that's such a beautiful note to end on.
Mm-hmm. May
Thank you.
19th. May 19th.
May 19th, and it'll be out. And if you pre-order it, that it makes such a huge difference. So I don't know if you guys know, but the way that it is to be an author is insane. Like having to like pitch yourself and do all this stuff on the side. Pre-orders are such a big deal because it like gets the potential for you to be on like big lists, but it also just like shows your publisher like we took a bet on you, and like we want more from you. We want you to write more. So yeah, pre-ordering is a huge deal, even though I know it's a bizarre thing where it's like, what do you mean? Like, I don't get to physically have it in my hands now. And we're such like a now world, but it does make a huge difference. So
Amazing. Everybody, place your pre-orders. If you want to follow along on all the books that we mentioned today, you can join us on Instagram. We are at Plans Are Booked. You can write to us at plansarebooked@gmail.com. And if you liked what you heard today, we would be so grateful if you would leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps people find the show.
And until next time, our plans are booked.
thank you guys.